It was a Tuesday morning when I dropped the folder on the table hard. Not by accident. I wanted it to echo. I wanted them to feel it. Logan, Caleb, and Jake, all three sitting there like they had the right to judge me, to spit venom with the same mouths I used to kiss goodnight. My sons, or so I thought. You have 30 minutes to pack your crap, I said. My voice didn't shake. It should have. Everything else in me was. My hands clenched the table edge, the veins in my arms flexed like they were trying to punch their way out of my skin. Logan, the oldest, scoffed. What the hell is this, Dad? I looked him straight in the eye. Those are your DNA results, along with your real father's address. The room went dead quiet. Yeah, that was the moment. The one I'd replay 1,000 times later, wondering if I should have handled it different. But hell no, I did what needed to be done. For 30 goddamn years, I lived a lie so she could keep her perfect little suburban story alive. For 30 years, I was the fool. The backup plan. The stand-in dad. The man who paid, stayed, and prayed she wasn't what my gut always suspected. But now I had proof. It started with Caleb. He'd mocked me after the divorce, laughing like I was some weak excuse for a man. Mom said you couldn't handle a little mistake from 30 years ago, he spat. You left her on the street for that? That? A little mistake? She banged another guy while we were engaged. Lied about it. Made me raise his kids. That? Let me rewind a little. Her name's Tiffany. Blonde. Gorgeous. Deadly. The kind of woman who could make you think it was your fault she cheated on you. We met in '92. I was head over boots dumb in love. We got engaged fast. I thought it was fate. Turns out it was just timing, and bad timing at that. 2 months before our wedding, she disappeared for a girls' weekend with her friend, Alicia. She came back with a sunburn and a glow I hadn't seen before. I thought she just had fun. We argued that night, I don't even remember what about. She said I didn't trust her. I said she was being cold. She cried. I apologized. Typical. We got married anyway. Logan was born 7 months later. I should have done the math. But when you're in love, you don't count days. You count heartbeats. And his heartbeat sounded just like mine. 3 kids. 2 decades. One huge lie. I started suspecting around the time Jake hit high school. He didn't look like me. None of them really did, but I chalked it up to Tiffany's genes. Until one day I was cleaning out the attic and found an old photo album. One of the pictures had a guy I didn't recognize. Tan, military haircut, grinning like a damn movie star. Tiffany had written "That weekend in Florida," 93 2 hearts on the back. My heart sank. I confronted her the next morning. She brushed it off. Oh, that's just Matt. An old friend. Friend? God, you're so insecure, Mike. Yeah. That's how she worked, flip it on me. Every time. But I wasn't stupid. Not anymore. I got the kids tested. Quietly. Hired a private lab and said it was for genealogy. When the results came back, not a single one was mine. Not Logan. Not Caleb. Not Jake. All those football games. All those Christmas mornings. All those college tuition payments. None of them were mine. So I waited. Waited until they tried to gang up on me again, defend their mother's honor, call me bitter and broken. I handed them the truth instead. You called me weak, I told them. You said I wasn't a real man. That I abandoned your mother. But she abandoned me before we even said I do. You don't get to shame me for walking away from a lie. Logan stood up, face red. You expect us to believe this crap? After everything? I pointed to the papers. Believe the science. And ask your mother about Matt. Jake picked up one of the test reports. His hands were shaking. Caleb looked like someone hit him with a bat. Pack. Your stuff, I said. Your real dad's address is on the back. You've got 30 minutes. No one moved. I turned and walked away. I didn't wait to see what they'd do. I was done. It didn't start with fireworks. It never does. Real betrayal doesn't kick the door down, it creeps in like a draft under a closed window, slowly chilling you to the bone. Looking back now, I know the exact moment the first crack appeared. It was a Tuesday night. Same old routine. I came home from work late, dropped my keys in the bowl, loosened my tie, and walked into the kitchen expecting to find Tiffany stirring something on the stove, humming to old 90s rock, pretending like she wasn't slowly poisoning my trust one lie at a time. Instead, I found her on her phone, whispering. She didn't see me at first. Her voice was low, but not low enough. I heard just enough. I'll delete the messages, he suspects nothing. My heart stopped. I didn't move. I just stood there like an idiot in the doorway listening to the woman I thought I knew bury a dagger in my back. Then she turned around. Oh, hey babe, she said with that sugary tone she used whenever she wanted to throw me off. Didn't hear you come in. I should have said something right there. But I didn't. I smiled, kissed her on the cheek, played along like a goddamn puppet because part of me needed to be wrong. I wanted to be wrong. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed beside her, staring at the ceiling, counting every second of silence between us. I watched her breathe easy like nothing was wrong while my mind played detective, rewinding every suspicious moment I'd ignored for years. Her suddenly working late. The random girls' weekends. Her new passwords. Her phone always face down. The cold shoulder every time I reached out for something more than routine. I started digging. Quietly. Carefully. First, her laptop. Locked. Always locked. But I was patient. I waited until she left for one of her spa weekends with Alicia and used one of the kids' old software recovery tricks to reset her password. You'd be surprised what people save when they think no one's watching. Emails. Hundreds. Some deleted. Most not. One name kept popping up, Matt H. The same name from the photo I found in the attic. That same smug smile. And the emails? God, the emails. I sat there in our kitchen reading line after line of her telling him how she missed his touch, how no one else ever made her feel that way, how I was just a safe choice after she got pregnant that year. Just a safe choice. That was all I ever was to her. A safety net. A wallet with a heartbeat. A man dumb enough to raise another man's sons while she slipped away to reignite old flames. But the real kicker? The dates. Some of the messages were from before our wedding. From right after that Florida trip. She'd lied to my face and married me while still whispering sweet nothings to some beachside fling. That was the moment everything snapped. My jaw tightened. My hands started shaking. I stood up so fast the chair skidded across the kitchen tile. I looked around the house, the pictures on the walls, the family is everything sign above the TV, the framed photo of our wedding day. It was all a stage. I wasn't the husband. I was the understudy. Filling in until her real lead showed up again. That night, I called a buddy of mine, Chris. Works in a private lab. Told him I needed something discreet. I want DNA tests for all 3 boys, I said. He didn't ask questions. Just told me to drop off the samples. A hair from a brush. A toothbrush. An old baby tooth I'd saved like a damn sentimental fool. I handed over the pieces of my fatherhood like evidence in a trial I didn't realize I'd already lost. Then I waited. 2 weeks later, the results came in a sealed envelope. When I opened it, I thought I was going to be sick. 0% match. All 3. Not one of them was mine. That's when the rage came. Not loud. Not explosive. Just pure, bone-deep fury. The kind that simmers. The kind that plans. I wasn't just going to walk away. I was going to blow up the whole fake little kingdom she built on lies. I didn't kick down the door. That's not how I do things. I waited. Planned. Every second felt like loading a bullet into a chamber, calm, deliberate, final. It was a Sunday afternoon when I made my move. Tiffany was in the kitchen humming like she hadn't ripped my soul in half. She was wearing that fake little smile she used on me when she wanted something, usually money, attention, or forgiveness for whatever lie she was cooking that week. I walked in, envelope in hand. DNA results. Printed emails. The whole damn dossier. Hey, Han, she said, like nothing was wrong, like she hadn't nuked 30 years of my life from orbit. Can you help me bring in the groceries? I dropped the envelope on the counter. Hard. Just like I did later with the boys. She flinched. What's this? She asked, wiping her hands on a towel. Read it, I said. She looked at it like it might explode. Slowly, she opened it. She skimmed the first page. Then the second. I watched her face drain of color like a sink being emptied. Her lips parted. No sound came out. Want to explain it to me, Tiff? I asked, arms crossed, voice steady. She licked her lips. Where did you get this? Oh, that's your first question? Not, I'm sorry. Not, let me explain? Not, it's not what it looks like? No. You want to know how the hell I caught you? Her eyes narrowed. And just like that, the act dropped. That was over 30 years ago, Mike. We weren't even married yet. Does that change the betrayal? I barked. You lied. You knew Logan wasn't mine. Then Caleb. Then Jake. You made me raise them like they were. I changed their diapers, I stayed up with them sick, I paid for everything they ever needed, hell, I loved them. And you let me believe they were mine. Her voice turned venomous. What was I supposed to do? Tell you the truth and watch you run off? You think I had a choice? I took a step forward, the rage bubbling just beneath the surface. You always had a choice. You chose to lie. To use me. You used me, Tiffany. She rolled her eyes. Oh, please, don't act like you were some kind of hero. You loved playing daddy. You loved having the perfect little family. What, you didn't notice they didn't look like you? Don't you dare twist this on me, I said, my hands shaking now. You cheated. Repeatedly. You built an entire life out of lies, and now you're blaming me for not figuring it out sooner. Then came the real kicker, she smirked. I swear to God, she smirked. Well, she said, leaning on the counter like she was chatting over coffee with a friend, if you didn't notice for 30 years, maybe you weren't such a great man after all. That's when I knew she was gone. Like, truly gone. Whatever woman I married. She didn't exist. This one? This one was just a master manipulator in heels, a liar who knew exactly how to twist the knife and keep smiling. I pulled out the printed emails, tossed them next to the DNA tests. I know about Matt. The trip to Florida. The emails. The visits. Her face paled again, but she recovered quick. Oh, you mean my first love? Yeah. Guess what? He's still hotter than you. Still makes me feel things you never could. I clenched my fists so hard my knuckles popped. You're disgusting. She laughed. Laughed. You're pathetic, Mike. What are you gonna do? Cry about it? Go tell your little friends how your wife played you like a fiddle. No, I said coldly. I'm going to do what I should have done the moment I found that photo. And what's that? I'm divorcing you. And I'm telling the boys. All of it. The smirk vanished. You wouldn't dare. I already did. She froze. I turned around and walked out of the kitchen, letting the silence hang behind me like a noose. That was the last time I ever looked at her the same way. I sat in my truck for over an hour that night. Didn't turn the engine on. Didn't touch the radio. Just sat there, hands on the wheel, staring at the garage door like it was the gate to hell itself. It had been only a few hours since I dropped the bomb on Tiffany. Since I told her I was done. That the curtain had finally dropped on her long-running performance as a loyal wife. But despite everything, the DNA tests, the lies, her smug face, I still felt like I'd been hit by a freight train. You don't just stop being a father after 30 years. You don't just switch it off. That's the part nobody warns you about. The anger I expected. The betrayal I was ready for. But the emptiness? That pit in my stomach where my whole identity used to live? That hit like a punch to the soul. I built my life around those boys. I was there for every scraped knee, every broken heart, every damn parent-teacher conference. Logan's high school graduation? I cried like a baby. Caleb's first football game? I was the loudest one in the bleachers. Jake's nightmares? I was up at 3 a.m. holding his hand and telling him monsters weren't real. Turns out the real monster was sleeping next to me the whole time. When I finally walked inside, the house was silent. Not just quiet, hollow. Like it knew something sacred had been shattered. I went to the living room, poured myself a glass of whiskey, and stared at the family portraits hanging above the fireplace. Perfect smiles. Coordinated outfits. A million little lies frozen in time. I tore them down. One by one. I didn't smash them. Didn't burn them. I just put them face down in a box. Like burying a body. The next morning, the boys showed up. I'd sent them a message the night before, come to the house. Alone. Urgent. Logan arrived first, followed by Caleb and Jake. All three walked in like they were ready to stage an intervention. Like I was the problem. What's this about? Logan asked, arms crossed. I didn't answer. I walked to the table, dropped the folder with the DNA results and the printed emails on it. Read, I said. They looked at each other, confused. Then one by one, they flipped through the documents. Their expressions changed in slow motion, disbelief, shock, denial, then that slow, sickening realization. Caleb looked up first. This can't be real. It's real, I said. Every word. Every result. You're not my biological sons. Not one of you. Jake started shaking his head. No. No, this is a mistake. You raised us. You. I know what I did, I snapped. I was there. Every damn day. But your mother lied to me. And to you. Logan slammed the folder shut. Why are you doing this now? After all this time? Because I deserve the truth. And so do you. You want to hate me for leaving your mom? Fine. But don't do it thinking she's some innocent victim. She made her bed. 30 years ago. Caleb spoke again, his voice lower this time. So, what now? I pulled out a second envelope and slid it across the table. That's the name and address of your real father. Matt H. The guy she was messing with when we were engaged. The guy who actually made you. The room went still. You have 30 minutes to pack your stuff, I said. This house is mine. Always was. You want to stay loyal to the woman who lied to all of us? Go stay with her. Or go find your real dad. Jake's eyes welled up. You're serious. Dead serious. They didn't move. For a full minute, nobody spoke. Then Logan stood up. You're not the man I thought you were, he said. I looked him in the eye. Neither are you. He left. Caleb followed. Jake hesitated, looked back at me, then walked out the door. And just like that, they were gone. After they left, the silence was deafening. I stood there in the middle of the living room, heart pounding like I'd just walked off a battlefield. Maybe I had. Except in this war, I didn't win. I didn't lose either. I just crawled out of the wreckage alone, dragging 30 years of pain behind me. I went upstairs, past the empty bedrooms. Caleb's guitar still leaned in the corner of his room, dusty from disuse. Jake's sketchbooks were scattered across his desk. Logan's old basketball jersey hung on the back of his door like a ghost of a boy who used to call me Dad without hesitation. And now? Now I was the stranger. I didn't eat that day. Didn't sleep that night. Just kept going over every memory, every Sunday morning breakfast, every Christmas morning when I wore that dumb Santa hat just to make them laugh. All lies. All fake. My role in their lives had always been built on a foundation of betrayal. The next few days were a blur. Tiffany tried calling, left a voicemail the first day. You're being dramatic. This affects the boys, too. Think about them. I deleted it without even listening to the rest. Think about them? I had for 30 years. And what the hell had she been thinking about? Her own pleasure. Her own secrets. She showed up at the house 2 days later, banging on the door like the queen of denial. Mike, open the damn door. I didn't. She stood there screaming for a while. Then she switched tactics. Don't do this to them, she said, voice suddenly soft. Manipulative. They didn't ask for this. Neither did I. Eventually she gave up, storming off in that fake high and mighty way she always used when she was cornered. I watched her through the window. She didn't cry. Not even a tear. She never felt the weight of what she'd done. Never had. But me? I spiraled. Whiskey became breakfast. Dinner. Everything in between. I stopped shaving. Stopped answering calls. The house got quiet. Too quiet. I started leaving the TV on all night just to feel like someone else was there. Just to drown out the sound of the memories tearing through my skull like shrapnel. The worst part? I missed them. All 3 of them. Even though they weren't mine by blood. Even though their words cut me like blades when they said I wasn't a real man. I still missed them. But I knew I couldn't go back. Pride wouldn't let me. Pain wouldn't let me. One night, I drove to Matt H.'s address. Just sat outside in my truck, engine running, parked across the street. I wanted to see the guy. The man who got my life while I got his leftovers. When he walked out onto his porch, laughing into his phone, I almost got out. Almost walked up and demanded something, answers, regret, maybe just one punch to the jaw to make it feel real. But I didn't. Because the truth is, it wasn't just him who took from me. She handed it all to him. On a silver platter. With a bow. With lies. I drove home instead. Parked in the dark. Sat in the kitchen staring at that same empty spot on the wall where our family photo used to hang. I was unraveling. It's a strange thing, losing people who were never truly yours. Like mourning a life that didn't exist. The next morning I made a decision. Enough spiraling. Enough drowning in the past. It was time to climb out of the wreckage and start again. Not for her. Not for them. For me. The first thing I did was get sober. I dumped every bottle in the house, whiskey, beer, vodka. Even the good stuff I'd been saving for special occasions. I watched it all swirl down the drain like poison being flushed out of my system. The stench of it lingered for hours, just like her scent used to cling to the bedsheets after one of her so-called girls' weekends. But I needed that stench gone. I needed all of it gone. I ripped the house apart. Every photo, every anniversary card, every little trinket she'd bought over the years gone. Donated, trashed, burned. I even found the beach shell she once gave me from that Florida trip, the one she claimed reminded her of me. Funny. Turns out it reminded her of Matt. Snapped it in half. And then I started over. I took time off work. Not because I was broken, but because I finally understood that healing isn't about pretending you're okay, it's about tearing everything down so you can rebuild something that's actually yours. I started small. Fixed the porch step that had been broken for 2 years. Repainted the guest room. Cleaned out the garage. I needed control over something, and if it wasn't going to be my past, then it damn well would be my future. Chris, the lab guy, came by one weekend. Brought a 6-pack of root beer and some decent advice. You did what most men wouldn't even have the balls to do, he said. You looked the truth in the face and you did something about it. I laughed. First time in weeks. Yeah? Doesn't feel like courage. Feels like I got hit by a freight train in slow motion. He just shrugged. Still stood back up. He was right. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't running on autopilot. I wasn't pretending things were okay or trying to be strong just to keep the illusion alive. The illusion was dead. Good riddance. A few days later, Jay called. Not Logan. Not Caleb. Jake, the youngest. The quiet one. The one who used to draw monsters in his notebooks and sit next to me on the couch while I watched football even if he didn't understand a damn thing. He didn't say much at first. Just sat there on the other end of the line, breathing. Then, "Can I come by?" I hesitated, but I said yes. He showed up the next evening. Older, thinner than I remembered, like the truth had hit him just as hard as it hit me. He didn't bring a bag, didn't ask for anything. Just walked in, looked around, and said, "It's weird not seeing Mom's stuff here." I raised an eyebrow. "You miss her?" He shook his head slowly. "I don't know what I feel." Neither did I. We sat in silence for a while. Then he reached into his hoodie pocket and pulled out an old photo. Us at a lake, fishing. He must have been 9. "I always thought you were my dad," he said quietly. "Even if you know." I took the photo, stared at it. I remembered that day. He caught his first fish and screamed like he'd just won the lottery. "I'm not your father by blood," I said, "but I was always your dad. Whether your mom liked it or not." He nodded. Eyes glossy. "I know. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't closure. But it was a start." That night I slept without whiskey. Without nightmares. Something had changed. I was still bleeding, yeah, but the wound wasn't fresh anymore. It was finally starting to scar. After Jake's visit, something inside me shifted. It wasn't peace, I wasn't there yet, but it was clarity. Like fog lifting just enough to see the road again. Still long, still broken, but real. For the first time in months, I could breathe without feeling like every inhale was dragging betrayal into my lungs. Jake started coming by more often. Never said much about Tiffany. Never mentioned the DNA results again either. But he helped around the house. We fixed the fence together. Rewired the garage lights. We didn't talk about the past, we built something new without saying it. That was enough. Logan and Caleb? Still radio silence. No calls. No texts. I stopped expecting them to show up. Logan was always Tiffany's little soldier anyway, her golden boy. Probably still believed every word she fed him. And Caleb? Too proud to admit the truth even if it slapped him in the face. I didn't need them to come back. I just needed me to come back. That's when the letter came. Handwritten. Sloppy cursive I hadn't seen in years. Tiffany. No return address. Just my name and a warning. Please read before you do something irreversible. For a second I almost chucked it in the trash. But my hands moved on their own, ripping it open like some desperate part of me still needed answers even after all this. It was 4 pages long. A whole monologue of half apologies, excuses, twisted justifications. She called herself young and confused when she met Matt again during that trip. Said she was scared I wouldn't marry her if I knew the truth. Claimed she didn't want to destroy our future. Then she dropped the hammer. She said Matt didn't want the kids. He knew. She told him about the pregnancies. And he wanted nothing to do with them. Said he wasn't father material. So she turned to me. The safe one. The man who always stayed. Who paid the bills. Who held her hair back when she got sick. Who stood at her side through every lie, every silent betrayal, never once thinking she was capable of something so low. She ended the letter with, "You weren't just a good man, Mike. You were the best. I just didn't deserve you. And maybe I hated you for it." Yeah, she hated me for being better than her. That letter? It didn't make me cry. Didn't even make me angry. It just confirmed everything I'd already known deep down. She never loved me. She loved what I did for her. The lifestyle. The family image. The house. The stability. But me? The man? I was just a means to an end. Later that night, Jake and I sat outside on the porch, sipping iced tea like it was whiskey. The stars were out. Quiet. Still. "You ever think about trying again?" he asked. I looked over. "With who?" "I mean, life. Another shot. Maybe even someone new." I laughed. "After your mother?" "Hell no." But then I paused. Because the truth was I had been thinking about it. Quietly. Hesitantly. I wasn't ready to fall in love again, probably never would be. But I wasn't dead either. There was still time. Still breath in my lungs. Still mornings worth waking up for. Jake grinned. "Well, if you do, maybe don't look for someone who writes beach trip emails behind your back." I chuckled. Good advice. The choice was mine now. I could let the past keep me shackled, bitter, and broken. Or I could turn the page. Not forget, no. You never forget something like this. But live anyway. In spite of it. I looked up at the sky. Breathed deep. Yeah, I said more to myself than to Jake. Maybe I will. Spring rolled in like it was trying to apologize for the winter I just crawled through. Everything outside started blooming, mocking me a little at first. Like the world moved on while I was still walking through the ashes of what used to be my life. But eventually I realized something. I wasn't walking through ashes anymore. I was standing on new ground. It had been 3 months since the confrontation. The house was quieter now. Lighter. Not just in sound, but in spirit. No more cold silences from a woman who smiled like a queen in public and stabbed like a serpent in private. No more fake family dinners, no more pretending everything was okay. Just me. And the truth. Jake kept coming around. We didn't talk about the past unless it surfaced naturally. Sometimes he'd ask what I remembered most about his childhood. I'd tell him. Not with bitterness, but with honesty. I didn't want to rewrite history, I just wanted to understand it better. On my terms. One afternoon, he helped me clear out the attic. Found an old video camera from when the boys were small. We watched a few tapes. Birthdays. Snowball fights. That camping trip when Caleb got lost for 2 hours and I nearly had a heart attack. Jake looked over at me during one clip, me grilling burgers while the 3 of them splashed in the kiddie pool. You were really good at it, he said. At what? Being a dad. I swallowed hard. I did what I knew. I loved you guys. That part was always real. He nodded. Still is. We didn't say anything after that. Didn't need to. About a week later, I ran into Tiffany at the store. Yeah. Of all places. I was buying damn coffee filters and there she was, sunglasses, tight jeans, fake confidence. She saw me before I could turn the corner. Froze. But then, like she always did, she recovered with a fake little smile. Mike, she said, walking up like nothing ever happened. You look good. I looked her dead in the eye. And you still lie like it's a hobby. She blinked, then laughed like it was cute. Still dramatic, I see. You still cheat? Guess we're both consistent. The smile dropped. She looked away, pretending to browse the gum rack like it suddenly held the secrets of the universe. I heard Jake's been visiting, she said. Yeah. She paused. The others won't talk to me either. Shocking. Another silence. Then, quietly, do you think I'm evil? I tilted my head. No. Evil implies a plan. You were just selfish. And weak. You hurt everyone around you to protect your fantasy. But don't worry, Tiff, Matt still makes you feel things, right? Her eyes narrowed. Matt left. Said he wasn't ready to play daddy to grown men. I guess you two weren't so different after all. I smiled. Nah. The difference is I stayed for 30 years. And I didn't lie my way through it. She didn't respond. Just turned around and walked away. That was the last time I saw her. And I didn't feel a damn thing. Now, as I sit here writing this, sun setting, porch quiet, dog asleep at my feet, I realize something important. I survived. Not just the betrayal. Not just the loss. I survived myself. The version of me that didn't want to believe, didn't want to face the truth, didn't want to start over. He's gone. What's left is a man who knows exactly who he is. Not because of who left him, but because of who he chose to become after they did. If you're reading this and you're going through something similar, let me give you the only advice that matters. Don't wait for the truth to be polite. It never is. But it will set you free even if it burns everything else down first. Walk through the fire. Come out clean. Because what's waiting on the other side? It's you. The real you. And that's worth everything.